Kane is in the building.
When we think of bureaucracies, we think of organizations of people that are typically complex, have professional staff that are hired on the basis of their expertise. So these are permanent organizations of skilled staffers. Now, when we talk about bureaucracy in American politics, we most commonly talk about the executive bureaucracy. Okay? Just to make sure we're clear on this, of course, you recall that we have three branches of government: the judicial, executive, and legislative, and each of them have their own bureaucratic organizations. That is, Congress has some organizations working for it that can be considered bureaucracies. So do the court systems. But today we're going to focus mainly on the executive bureaucracy. Okay. Now that involves some of the offices within the White House. But when we talk about the executive bureaucracy, we're usually thinking about other kinds of organizations. Now, what are those organizations? Well, you got the whole panoply of them here. Right now, there are 14 different cabinet-level departments. Departments are the largest organizations of our American bureaucracy. Just to remind you of the list: agriculture, defense, transportation, commerce, energy, justice, health and human services, labor, veterans affairs, education, treasury, and housing and urban development. Okay, those are the 14 cabinet-level departments in our country. But those are not the only kind of bureaucracies that we have in the executive branch. We also have what are called independent establishments or government corporations. Now, this is a whole variety of different organizations. Let me just mention a couple to you so that can give you some illustrations of that. My wife, for example, works for the National Science Foundation, a research organization created and funded by the national government that is separate from any of these cabinet departments. Or examples of government corporations are things as the U.S. Postal Corporation, or even the Peace Corps. Those are organizations, corporations, established by the government, part of the bureaucracy, but not part of the 14 cabinet.
Government is asked to do something, and it is asked a lot. Somebody has to do it. When mail needs to be delivered, our United States Postal Service delivers. When our elderly count on their monthly pension checks, the Department of the Treasury and the Social Security Administration make sure the checks arrive on time. When we board a plane hoping to arrive to our destination safely and on time, the Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Aviation Administration take care of our worries. When we deposit our savings into a bank, we want assurances that the money is secure. The Federal Deposit Insurance Company makes sure of that. Democratic governments have been instituted to serve the people. The legislative branch and their respective legislatures respond to the needs of the people by writing laws. In our United States government, Congress is responsible for creating public policy. The executive branch is given the primary function to implement those policies. The President of the United States and his staff execute the laws. This is no small task. The large arm of the executive branch responsible for translating laws into action is called the federal bureaucracy. The federal bureaucracy is the government means to a public policy end. When we want our government to do something, it is the federal bureaucracy who is responsible for doing it. The federal bureaucracy transforms our wishes into realities. The federal bureaucracy transforms federal policy into action. The United States and the needs of its people. The federal bureaucracy has grown to a workforce of close to 3 million people. Federal offices filled with executive branch employees can be found in all 50 states and around the world. The federal bureaucracy is characterized by its organization, specialization, and expertise. Whereas once the executive branch was staffed primarily by patronage appointments, that is, by friends and patrons of the president, the Civil Service Act of 1883 established the merit system. Today, the vast majority of the federal bureaucracy is made up of career civil servants. The federal bureaucracy tends to be organized hierarchically. Underneath the President of the United States and his White House staff and executive office are the cabinet departments. Each cabinet department has a head, usually called the secretary, with multiple levels and layers of responsibility. The most noted cabinet departments are the State Department, responsible for foreign policy, the Treasury Department, responsible for monetary policy, the Department of Defense, responsible for national security. Yet other cabinet departments are growing in stature as federal priorities change. The Department of Education is trying to reform public education in America. The Department of Health and Human Services is implementing many changes in the way health care will be provided to millions of Americans. In addition to the cabinet departments, the federal bureaucracy is also made up of independent agencies like NASA, the CIA, and the EPA. NASA, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, studies and explores regions outside of our atmosphere. The CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, gathers and interprets foreign intelligence in order to keep us safe at home. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, develops policies and programs to clean our environment. The federal bureaucracy is also made up of certain government corporations like the United States Postal Service and Amtrak. One delivers our mail, and the other delivers us to our destination via rail.
DPGC, man, turn that CPT, LBC, yeah, we hooking back up. And when they bang this in the club, baby, you got to get up. Look, yeah, they giving it up. Low life, yo life, boy, we living it up. Taking chances while we dancing in the party for sure. Slip my what she got in the back door. Looking at me strange, but you know I don't.
Is a result of a strict code of rules, procedures, and guidelines. Ultimately, bureaucracies are the means by which power is exerted over others. Efficiency and mismanagement are always concerns, but so too is the abuse of power by those up and down the chain of command. First and foremost, the executive branch tries to control itself. The President of the United States is the manager-in-chief. The oath of office assigns the president to faithfully execute the laws. This has meant that every president concerns itself with reinventing how the federal bureaucracy works. Congress is given oversight authority of the federal bureaucracy. This involves holding public hearings in which various levels of the bureaucracy are asked to account for themselves. In addition to writing the legislation that creates federal agencies in the first place, the Congress also controls the bureaucracy through its budget. The power of the purse is an important tool when disciplining the federal bureaucracy. Invariably, however, iron triangles are formed which reduce the impact of congressional oversight. Iron triangles are particular issue networks made up of congressional committees, federal agencies, and special interest groups. Since they all share the same goals, these respective iron triangles are protected from any serious reform. Finally, the Supreme Court is our final arbitrator when exercising control over the federal bureaucracy. Court cases arise that help to define the federal bureaucracy's rights and responsibilities. For instance, in the Supreme Court case Wilder v. Virginia Hospital Association in 1990, the justices ruled that eligible for federally assisted health care must have reasonable access to facilities of adequate quality. Rules such as these help the federal bureaucracy shape policy in accordance to the law.
May I kick a little something for the cheese and make a few ends as I breeze through?
We didn't choose to be bureaucrats. No, that's what Almighty Jah made us. We treat people like swine and make them stand in line, even if nobody paid us. They say the world looks down on the bureaucrats. They say we're anal, compulsive, and weird. But when push comes to shove, you gotta do what you love, even if it's not a good idea.